This is It Was a Thing on TV.
Total Red Man has ever done something like this to me!
It's, time!
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the dregs of humanity!
Welcome to the It Was a Thing on TV podcast, episode 19, submission 266. Super Jeopardy and Monopoly. Super Jeopardy aired on ABC from June 16th to September 8th of 1990 for a total of 13 episodes. As always, Greg is here, Chico's here, I'm Mike, and we're going to cover two game shows today. And the reason we're covering these two shows is because coming up starting on this Tuesday, the 7th of January, ABC is doing a greatest of all time tournament involving Ken Jennings and Brad Rutter and James Holzhauer. And maybe some of our listeners don't know that this isn't the first time ABC tried this with Jeopardy. 30 summers ago, I should say, there was a 13-week tournament where many of the big winners of the previous, that would be about 6 seasons up to that point. Yeah, it was summer of 1990, so that was about 6 seasons. They all competed in this tournament, as well as one other person who did not win between 1984 and 1990. We'll get to that in a moment. And the winner of the tournament took home $250,000.
$250,000 in 1990 money, folks.
Yeah, which would be at least $500,000 now, if not even closer to maybe $600,000 or $700,000. This tournament, while it was meant to be a draw of all the former champions, I think the one thing that really hurt this show was it aired on a Saturday night. This was Saturday Night Filler back in 1990. This wasn't something you'd see on a Friday night or a Thursday night or a Monday night right after the Jeopardy show airs in your area. No. This is a Saturday night thing. And typically Saturday night is not the best night for ratings.
Especially Saturday nights in the summer.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And there's nothing really special about this Jeopardy. It was the same questions and answers you're used to. There were some minor differences, though. First is there were no dollars. It was all for points. And whoever had the most points in an episode obviously won and played the next week or played in the next tier of games. And another thing is, and this sort of predates the actual show Jeopardy by about 11 years, kind of, sort of. The values in single Jeopardy were doubled. They were the 200, 400, 600, 800, 1,000 that we've been used to for the last going on 2 decades.
Yeah, but then in the double Jeopardy round, it didn't necessarily double. They just got bumped up to 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, and 2,500.
It was the double and a half Jeopardy round. But also the other really big thing about Super Jeopardy, it's the first time it's happened, at least in the United States. There were 4-person games.
Yep.
Now that made me actually wonder, did they build a 4th podium specifically for this event, or do they keep an extra podium backstage in case one breaks down? And I'm going to pose it to Chico since he's been on the show. Maybe he has more insight than I do. Do they only have the 3 podiums? And I realize that 2018 is a little different than 1990, but is there a backup podium in case the electronics go bad?
No, if the electronics go bad, we get index cards.
Which, yeah, you do see every now and then, not very often, but you do see index cards come into play if the light pins conk out or something. Well, also, if I remember correctly, the current Jeopardy, the the lecterns for the contestants is one giant piece.
Yes,
It isn't.
It's been one giant piece for. I want to say what was the first HD season of Jeopardy? Because that's when they moved from 3 separate pieces to one giant piece.
Well, would this have come with one of the set changes?
No, they actually retrofitted the existing set for the HD lecterns.
Oh,
And then it was the 25th anniversary. Wait a minute, was it the 25th anniversary? It was the 25th anniversary during that when they did the show in Las Vegas for CES when they did the whole set. They built the whole set for CES and then they trucked it back to LA and that became the set for until a couple of years later when they changed it again.
And actually, I think the first year that it broadcast in HD may have been 2006, because I remember, and I think you were there, Chico, we went to go see the first week of Wheel of Fortune that season, and that was the first episode that was being broadcast in HD.
Yep.
So it definitely wouldn't surprise me if 2006 is the answer to that question. So, as we said, there were 36 contestants, 35 winners from Jeopardy between 1984 and 1990, and one other individual who we'll get to in a moment. Some of the names are just, if you know anything about Jeopardy, especially Jeopardy 30 years ago, 35 years ago, these are like the Ken Jennings and the Brad Rudders and the James Holzhauers of the 80s. Going through the names really quickly, you had Bob Verini, definite superstar, one of the best. Bruce Nagley, another good player. I remember the name from back in the day. Steve Rogitz, Wida Rellstab, Frank Spangenberg, who is, by far, like one of the best.
And Officer Frank, I believe the only player in the pre-double value era to get to 100,000.
In 5 days, I believe you're right. Yes.
Yeah, because it was something around 102,000 he had in his run.
Yeah, I've got the stats right here because, well, I do my homework.
He's prepared.
Yes, I am. Hey, do you know the other podcasts I do? It's my job to be prepared. But yeah, Frank Spangenberg, over his 5 days on Jeopardy, won a total of 102,597. The winnings were capped at 75,000 per the rules of the show at the time, which means $27,597 were donated to Frank's selected charity, the Missionaries of Charity in New York City.
Yeah, that would have been CBS network rules, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, because CBS went from 25,000, I think, to maybe 50,000 sometime in the 80s. I think it was around the time Pressure Luck was on, so that was probably around 85, 86.
No, wrong.
Okay, correct me.
Did I mention that I was prepared? Okay, so it was 1988-89 because it was season 6. He was a 5-time champion during season 6. So 1989, 1990, one of those two. And again, the cap was 75,000 because the cap was raised to 50,000 during Press Your Luck, and then again to 75,000 until sometime in the last 10 or 15 years when they just said to hell with the cap.
Isn't that what I said? I said the cap was raised to 50,000 when Pressure Luck was on the air, and then it was...
Sorry. I you know what? I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
Yeah, alright, let me explain. Pressure Luck, sometime in late 84, early 85, after Marco Larson basically robbed the CBS network of 110 grand, decided, you know what, we might as well raise our silly limit from 25,000 to 50,000.
Yeah.
So after Frank Spangenberg, we had Brian Wangsgard and Eugene Feynman and Kate Waits. In episode 3, we had Elise Bararu, Richard Perez Pena. Here's a name that may ring a bell to a couple of folks. Gary Giardina.
That would ring a bell. That is a bell ringer.
Why does it ring a bell?
Because he was on another show, obviously.
He was on another show, obviously. Which one?
I do not remember.
Oh, you forgot that he was on Future Entry Double Dare?
Ah.
Woo! And then the last player in episode 3 was Eric Newhouse, who actually was the 1989 college tournament winner. Good player back in the day.
Very good player back in the day. And of course, the 3 winners of those quarterfinals would meet again in the semifinal. Those would be Bob Verini, Eugene Bitterman, and Eric Newhouse.
And then the fourth quarterfinal game, we had Mark Lowenthal, another familiar name, Paul Rufa, Kathy Boggs, and Keith Walker. In the quarterfinal number 5, we had Rich Lerner, Bruce Seymour, Liz Cassisi, and here's the name of the person who was not a winner on Jeopardy between 1984 and 1990. Burns Cameron.
I remember that guy.
And Chico does. I think he has a story to tell.
Yes, I do. This was actually about 15 years ago.
It was 14. I think it was 06. I think it was 14 years ago.
Okay,
yeah.
14, 15 years ago. And we were playing a mock game. It was Burns Cameron, myself, and Maddie Suchard, who would go on to be a Kids Week contestant on Jeopardy. Still doing well, by the way. She says hi. And yeah, and Burns just absolutely mops the floor with the two of us.
But who ended up winning?
Burns Cameron.
No, I thought it was Maddie.
Oh, my bad. Again.
Yeah, because I think
ago.
it was faulty wagering, and she had very little money. I mean, mind you, 14 years ago, Maddie Suchard would have been all of about 12 or 13, and she's going against Chico and Burns Cameron, who is like the greatest champ of Jeopardy in the Art Fleming era back in the 60s and 70s. And she ends up winning because she was playing defensively and everybody got final wrong. And here she wins with whatever, $5 or $10 or whatever. But yeah, it's just very surreal. But also, we should give a plug out for where we did this, or where you did this. This was at the old Game Show Congress, which has sort of morphed into the Trivia Conferences in North America.
Which is sort of morphed into the Trivia Nationals, which is coming up this July.
Yes,
by the way,
late July, early August.
By the way, happy National Trivia Day.
Yes, today, the day we're taping, January 4th, is National Trivia Day. So it's very timely that we're talking about this. So that was the 5th quarterfinal. 6th quarterfinal, Tom Cubbage, again, another good player from back in the day, Leah Greenwald, Lionel Goldbart, and Roger Storm. Then you had semifinal game number 2, which was Keith Walker versus Bruce Seymour versus Roger Storm. Then we get to the last 3 quarterfinal games.
And we got 2 good ones in this ninth game.
Yeah, this is where you hear the big ones.
The first name is the big one. If you ask me, the first name in Game 7, Chuck Forrest.
He likes to bounce.
He was the creator of the bounce. He was the first super champion. He was amazing.
Yeah,
and then
he would have. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
If the current Jeopardy rules were in effect, I guarantee you'd probably have like a James Holzhauer run.
Oh yeah, he would have easily lasted probably 20, 25, 30 episodes. Then you had Dave Traney, Ron Black, and Yale Sofaer. 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 Quarterfinal 8 had Bob Blake. Again, another big name from back in the day. Michael Rankins, friend of a couple of us.
Yep.
Yes. Keith Bell and Peggy Malice.
Yeah.
And I've got a Michael Rankin story. I beat him in Jeopardy this year at Trivia Nationals. Five-man Jeopardy, and I won. So I'm just saying, I beat a Jeopardy champion and a competitor in the Super Jeopardy tournament. I need to just, there you go, pat myself on the back. There we go.
Good job. Good
Yes.
job. Good
Yes,
job. You want a cookie?
I could use one. I feel so accomplished. And then the last quarterfinal game was Sandy Gore, Jeff Richmond, another name which is sort of familiar online nowadays. He keeps on popping up on my people you may know list, and there's like 3 dozen of my friends have Jeff Richmond as a mutual friend, so obviously he still gets around. And Bruce Fallman and Zeke Sevilla Jr. And the third semifinal game ended up being Dave Traney, Bob Blake, and Jeff Richmond. And the winners of the semifinals game who played in the final game were Bob Verini, Bruce Seymour, and Dave Traney. And the big winner, I mean, if you look at those 3 names, the name that sticks out to me as the person who should win is Bob Verini.
Yes.
But it was Bruce Seymour who won.
Yep, I've got the final right. This was the deciding final. This was the hardest clue in the world in 1990. Here it is. The category is, I feel like I'm doing WLTI all of a sudden. The category is the 20th century, and here's the clue. He was vice president of the U.S. for just 82 days before becoming president.
Okay, hold on.
I know this.
Hold on. Give me a second. I'm thinking about it. Oh, I think I got it. Yeah. Okay.
All right,
Greg,
you want me to
reveal.
say it?
Yeah, go, Greg.
Who is Terry S. Truman?
That's my answer too. Who's Harry S. Truman?
Yes, it is Harry S. Truman. He was vice president 82 days. And again, this wasn't a lock tournament, but there was really nothing that anybody could do. When Bob lost everything, I mean, he played as well as he could have, but Bruce got it right and won the $250,000. And that was Super Jeopardy.
No, there's one more thing I want to add.
Oh, there was.
There's one more little thing I want to add.
Tell me more, sir.
Super Jeopardy spawned a home version.
Oh yeah,
Yes!
I was just watching YouTube playthroughs. There were actually 2 home versions. The first one being on the NES, and the second one being on the PC. The NES version looked like a downscaled version of the PC version.
The NES version, I've played it with somebody in the recent past, within the last probably 2 or 3 years. It is a slog to get through.
It is.
That's the one downfall to most of the Jeopardy games is it's going to take you more than half an hour to play it. But this, it took an unusually longer amount of time because it had a voice chip built in, which really for 1990 is pretty cool technology for a home video game. But oh my gosh, I'm not joking. It must have taken probably close to over an hour, if not closer to about 75 minutes to play one game of Super Jeopardy. And that wasn't a 4-person game. It was a 3-person game. You could have played 4 people on that.
Yeah, and in fact, it's one of the few NES games that requires 4 players. So if you had like an NES 4-score or an NES satellite, and you had like 3 other people around, you could say, "Hey, do you want to play some Super Jeopardy on NES?"
You want to waste 2 hours of your life playing Jeopardy?
I mean, I would. I don't know about the rest.
Well, like I said, as is the case with most Jeopardy games, you had to type in the answer letter by letter, and if you had some long answer, that could take most of the 60 seconds for you to put in the answer, and then you had the computer say you're right or you're wrong or whatever, and it just as much as I love Jeopardy, home games, that's one of the downfalls, except for the Switch version that came out a couple of years ago. Since that's all multiple choice, you can easily play that game in probably about 20 minutes.
I think the 360 PS3 version of Jeopardy from a couple of years ago was
I actually have that. And you are correct. It was a bundle pack with Wheel of Fortune. They called it America's Favorite Game Shows: Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy.
No, that's the PS4, Xbox
Oh,
One
my bad.
version.
That's the name of the Switch version too.
Yeah, I know my Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune versions on consoles, baby. I was very good at playing Jeopardy Junior Edition back in the day on NES, let me tell you. That's for you, Annie, and God bless you.
Oh, and also, that's another sort of spoiler for later on this year. We're doing an episode all about video games based on TV shows. Now, we're not going to cover Super Jeopardy, obviously, but we found some doozies. Oh, my.
I'm sure we'll have some NES Game Tech versions in there.
Yeah.
Oh, I guarantee. I know. Just not even thinking about it, I know there's one. I'm not going to say what it is. Actually, we could make a case for two of them. But, yeah, there's definitely going to be at least one. But we've compiled a very... it's a bad list. There's some bad games out there. So, the video game show is a little bit away. It'll be in early March. But we'll just tell you right now, Super Jeopardy is not on the list. We covered it right here.
Well, Mike, that was Super Jeopardy. And now we get into the part that we wanted to discuss on this show.
Woo-hoo,
this is the reason we're here, right? And what we're talking about is Monopoly, which aired after Super Jeopardy. And it only aired from June 16th to September 1st of 1990. It only had 12 episodes.
On the boardwalk. M-O-N-O-P-O-L-Y. Yeah. M-O-N-O-P-O-L-Y. Monopoly, 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 Monopoly. M-O-N-O-P-O-L-Y.
You just heard part of the theme song of Monopoly, and Chico has a very apt way of describing it.
It is a bop.
Seriously, it's like a throwback to the 50s.
Yeah, and it fits because let's think about this. When was Monopoly created? It was created in the 30s. In the 30s.
Yeah. Okay,
So,
the 50s and 30s is close enough. Yeah, we're never good at mathematics. But also, it sort of it brings up like Chico's theory about theme songs. You listen to the theme song, and it paints a pretty decent picture as to what's going on. Not necessarily for a game show per se, but it gives you the gist of what's happening. Roll the dice, it's paradise, and if you fail, you go to jail. Yeah, it describes Monopoly in a beautiful way.
it sure does.
So yeah,
The show isn't. I was gonna say.
Yeah, too bad the show isn't as good as the theme. You're absolutely right about that.
There's a rule in game shows. The rule is
You shouldn't need to have a complex flowchart as the rules to a game show.
right.
Oh,
if you
agreed.
can't explain the premise in one word, in one sentence, it's too complex.
Complicated.
And Monopoly just at its core is complex to begin with. So,
and not to mention, Monopoly is a game where a lot of the times you make up your own rules, like money on free parking, certain rules. I mean, some of them are not official Hasbro or Parker Brothers sanctioned rules, but those are like the rules in your home.
Well, they sort of did that with Monopoly here. They did a little bit of, they took some artistic license, if you will.
They took some of the more popular house rules and adapted them for this show.
Well, before we get to the whole rules, how to play the game, this originally was supposed to be a syndicated show. It was announced in November of 1989 that Peter Tomarken was going to host it. And the pilot to the show is on YouTube. It might take a little bit of searching, but you can find it. And the pilots, the show isn't much different than the pilot, but there's a couple of differences. Peter Tomarken, as we said, was the host of the pilot, but also, as we mentioned in the Star Wars Holiday Special, Patty Maloney played Rich Uncle Pennybags and actually ran around the board. Rich Uncle Pennybags was like a human marker showing what space was landed on, which was a little surreal, a little useless, and there's a reason why Rich Uncle Pennybags didn't make the final show.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a third wheel.
You couldn't get an old man in a monocle for this show.
Yeah, there's another good point. There's plenty of old people in Hollywood. You could have easily gotten somebody like Billy Barty.
You could have gotten Emil Arturi to be Rich Uncle Pennybags.
No. You didn't hear me. Billy Barty.
Oh yeah, we could have gotten Billy Barty. That would have been terrific.
Absolutely. Well, Billy Barty may have been too big of a name.
He could have had another dwarf and a magician. Well, Billy Barty was coming right off of UHF.
There was no Rich Uncle Pennybags in the show that made it to air. And also, there was no Peter Tomarken.
Right.
We ended up with Mike Riley. And you're saying to yourself, who is Mike Riley?
Who's Mike Riley?
Oh,
Who is Mike Riley?
That's great timing. Believe it or not, Mike Riley was a contestant on the pilot. He also was a contestant on Jeopardy. So Merv knew of him. And if you know Merv likes taking chances on unknown people as hosts. Some work, like that Sajak guy.
Or Ryan Seacrest on Click.
And Ryan Seacrest. And Chuck Woolery. And Art Fleming. And then sometimes they just don't work, like Ty Treadway.
Mm-hmm.
Ralph Benershka, The Amazing Jonathan, and you can add Mike Riley to that list. Oh, he was a bad host. So the game itself, you had 3 players, and this was sort of a word game. It was maybe in the same vein as the crossword clues category on Jeopardy. Maybe also a little bit like Merv Griffin's crosswords. Oh, by the way, future entry Merv Griffin's crosswords. But it was that type of game where, yeah, you had a crossword type of clue, and each monopoly, each of the 8 different monopolies on the board, each of those properties, the clue associated with them started with the same letter. So if you had Baltic and Mediterranean, maybe the letter in common was L. And then the whole idea is people won the monopolies by basically, let's say, getting a majority of the questions right. If somebody got all the questions right in the number of properties that are in that monopoly, like if they got both questions in a 2-property monopoly or got all 3 in a 3-property monopoly, they automatically got the monopoly. But if they didn't sweep it, it got a little more complex. is kind of easy with the two property monopolies. Basically, the two people that got the questions right went head to head, and whoever got the question right gained control of that monopoly. In a three-person situation, though, if one person got two of the properties and one person got another one, the person that had two properties only had to answer one question correctly to get that monopoly, while the person who had one property had to answer two correctly before the other person answered one correctly in order to get the monopoly. See, I told you, you need like a complex flowchart just to get through this. And on top of all this, you had all of the rent values from the board game Monopoly. So Mediterranean was worth $60, and then you had Baltic would have been, I believe, $80 if I remember my game correctly. And the property values around the board increased until you got to Boardwalk, which is $400. And if you answered correctly, that value was taken away from your score. But also another thing, and this happened a few times, I remember this happening, if nobody answered correctly, another clue was played with the same first letter as the answer, but the value of the property was cut in half. And I wonder if that would go on if they missed that, then would it be cut in half again? And I mean, it seems really crazy because, you know, you'd go from, say, $60 for Mediterranean. If nobody gets it right twice, you're playing for $15. Who cares about $15? I'm sorry. Even in 1990, as a 15-year-old, I didn't care about $15.
To quote Mike Francesa, who cares?
Who cares?
820, here's the McMahon.
And then after all 8 monopolies were played out like that, when all 8 monopolies were owned by the players, then we had a commercial break, and the players used their money to build houses and hotels on their properties, not unlike the game itself. Houses were $50 a piece, and they had to be built evenly on the monopoly, and hotels were $250. And again, had to be built evenly. So the strategy basically tells you, buy all your houses on the most expensive monopolies you can, and then fill houses in on the other monopoly. So in the second round, we played Monopoly, sort of like Monopoly that you play at home. There was a dice pit. It was a circular dice pit, not unlike the rectangular one from High Rollers. The dice were rolled, and everybody more or less used the same piece. It was a light that went around the board, and so the light would move however many spaces that the dice roll was. And Charlie O'Donnell mentioned the value for the question, and then Mike Riley read a question to the person who owned it. The person that owned it had first crack at winning this money, and if he got it wrong, he didn't lose any money. If he got it right, he got the value of the money added to a score. But if he got it wrong, he didn't lose money, but either other opponents could buzz in to answer and earn that money, but they had the risk of losing money if they were incorrect. Like I said, giant flowchart. This is a mess of a game. But there were also some other spaces on the board. Obviously, it isn't just properties. There were utilities, the electric company and waterworks, and a question was asked, and it was worth 100 times the number rolled on the dice. So it could be 200, it could be 1,200. That's not bad. 1,200 is better than most of the spaces on the board of hotels.
Right.
Now, railroads is where it gets very interesting. So if the light landed on one of the railroads or the space, the game piece, or the action moved to one of the railroads, one of the players got a chance to ride that railroad and initiate a hostile takeover. So a toss-up question was asked, and the first player that answered the clue correctly could choose one of the opponent's monopolies to take over. So this is a game changer now. So what happened is once the Monopoly was chosen, the light moved to the first square in that Monopoly, and the person who won the toss-up question for the railroad, they got to play however many questions there were, or up to however many questions there were in that property. So if they were going for Boardwalk and Park Place, they'd only have to answer 2 questions, but almost everything else on the board, minus the first Monopoly, they'd answer 3. So if that person got 3 questions right in a row without missing any, that person got control of the Monopoly. And its entire combined value of the properties and the houses and hotels that were built on the Monopoly went into that person's bank. So this could be a huge game changer when you're talking about the 2 hotels on Boardwalk and Park Place, and then the $750 rent on those 2 properties. So that would be $1,250 right there. But also that would be $1,250 taken away from the person who owned those 2 properties. So this, again, you need a giant flow chart here. It's very wacky. And then if you had a wrong answer for the takeover attempt, the person that missed had to pay the corresponding rent to the owner of the Monopoly, based on where the light indicator was on the Monopoly. So if the person missed the first question, they'd pay the rent and whatever the hotels, the cost, including hotels or houses, for that first property, or the second or the third. So there is a little growth in risk, since obviously the prices in the monopolies, of the properties in monopolies, does go up over time, or as you go down the path, the road. And then Chance and Community Chest were just cards, just like the board game, that gave you some special instructions. Collect $10 for winning the beauty pageant, or pay $100 for every hotel you have, or every house, and $500 for every hotel. Or I'm making these up, but it's similar to what you actually see in the board game. Or everybody go, or everybody go to jail, or everybody go to Indiana Avenue, what have you. And then the tax spaces, they were played just like the board game, more or less. Luxury tax took away $75 from everybody, and income tax took 10% away. It wasn't 10% or $200. It was a flat 10%. And then here's one of the home rules that Greg sort of talked about earlier, free parking. A question was asked, and the first player to answer correctly won $500 and all the money collected in taxes and fines since the last time free parking was correctly answered. So that could be a big game changer, depending on how much taxes were taken away if you land on income tax once or twice. And then go to jail. You go to jail. Everybody lost $250. So yeah, do you wonder why this didn't last more than 12 episodes?
Because I need a PowerPoint to explain the whole thing.
Yeah, you need a master's degree to explain this. And we're not even done yet, because after the round 2 was done, then we went to a commercial, or to a little break, and they added all the properties and the rents back into the respective owners' banks. So yeah, I mean, they're just throwing numbers all over the place. It's almost like, as a home viewer, you've got to say, okay, we trust you, you know what you're doing. We have no idea what the heck's going on. You're just throwing numbers out left, right, here, and there. It's still confusing. 30 years later, it's just mind-boggling how...
Yeah.
I mean, I understand you want to make a game show on a popular property, and Monopoly's as big as you get, but geez, look at other board games that have been done in the past and how much more simplified they were. Whether you're talking about Scrabble, Trivial Pursuit, even, and I know people don't like this, Boggle, the Family Channel ran back in the mid-90s. Not terribly difficult. Even if you did it sort of like what Family Game Night did on the Hub / Discovery Kids. I mean, that's a little different. That's a lot more fun. It doesn't have a laundry list of rules that you need to follow. And even if you want to keep it in the Monopoly name, what about Monopoly Millionaires Club? I know it's a lottery show, but at least that was very simple to follow.
Yeah, and it had Billy Gardell.
Yeah, it had Billy Gardell too, which is an added bonus, absolutely. So now, after all that stuff was done, and somehow they got all that done in 20-some minutes, including commercial time, you went to the bonus round. And the bonus round was nice and simple. Finally, something simple in this game.
This is probably the best part of the show, the bonus.
This is the only part of the show that's good because the rest is just such, cockamamie.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
All you have to do is go, and again, it's so simple and so easy and so enjoyable that Monopoly Millionaires Club actually did the same thing for its bonus round. But yeah,
more or less, some slight differences, but not too many. So the winner of the day, they had to make one revolution around the board in 5 turns while staying out of jail. Now, there's one caveat. They didn't just roll the dice 5 times, and if the rolls ended up more than 40, yay, you won. No. The champion, the winner of the day, had to choose 4 spaces on the board, 1 each on the second row and the third row, and 2 on the fourth row. The home stretches you're going to go to what would be the victory space, essentially. And all those spaces became go to jail. You hit go to jail, game over. So you earned $100 for each space you moved on the board. And if you got around the board without going to jail and without running out of rolls, you won $25,000.
But if you landed on go, if you landed on go, you won $50,000.
Which never happened on the show.
No.
Nobody won $50,000 on the show. It sounds nice, but again, it's just pie in the sky. So if you go around the board and at least reach go, if you pass it, you win $25,000. If you hit it on the nose, you win $50,000. If you go to jail, you won $100 for each space that you passed during your gameplay. And that was Monopoly.
Whew.
That took forever.
No, I'm not going to draw out the rules. I can only imagine the contestant rules. Oh my gosh. I mean, I've seen rules for Jeopardy. I've seen rules for Millionaire. Chico's seen rules for a number of shows, Jeopardy and other shows that he's been on.
Let's Ask America.
Well, Let's Ask America. But I'm sure you've done other shows too. I'm sure you tried out for Millionaire at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe? Okay. And rules aren't supposed to be that thick. I mean, even Millionaire, I think the rules were maybe about 15, 20 pages long. A lot of legalese. But we know what the gist of Millionaire is. Question, 4 answers, 1's right. Get it right, you move on. Get it wrong, you fall down to the safety barrier. I mean, I can imagine this being like a 50 or 60 page rule book, and that's just insane.
Yeah, it was just, this, and the thing of it is, this could have, was there any saving this show?
No, I really think this is a burn-off. I think it was something that ABC or Merv Griffin said, hey, we've got to pair a show with Super Jeopardy on Saturday nights because we're not going to make Super Jeopardy an hour long. So, what can we air at?
Of course, this was 30 years ago, so.
Yeah, I mean, they could have aired, say, Mr. Belvedere reruns or some reruns of other shows that ABC would have been airing at the time. But, they went with Monopoly, and Whew. It's Chico. I'm going to say it. I'm taking your line. Monopoly.
Okay.
Monopoly. It was a thing on TV.
Yeah,
Super
and
Jeopardy was too, but we like Super Jeopardy at least.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
love Super Jeopardy.
Super Jeopardy
I like-
was legendary.
I like Jeopardy with 4 players, dang it.
Oh, and I should also add, there was an international version of Monopoly. Not even joking.
There
What?
was. I've got the. It was broadcast on S4C in the UK, hosted by Derek Brown, and it was Welsh. Because that's
A Welsh version in 1992, and now it just makes me wonder. You know, you've got these crazy rules, and now you're talking Welsh. The place names that are Welsh. What? Yeah, I mean, have you ever seen any of these place names in Welsh?
Do you imagine if there was a Swedish version of Monopoly?
Oh God. I am right now. I am looking for information on the S4C Monopoly. I don't think it exists outside of the outside of Truth by Consensus Wikipedia. Oh wait, our friends at UK Game Shows. Hi, UK Game Shows. Okay, so it was essentially the same, but here's the thing. The properties were either British cities or world cities, depending on whatever season was playing. They aired 2 seasons of this show.
I was just gonna say they aired 2 seasons of this show, and I'm really surprised that they didn't use like Mayfair and stuff like that.
And again, aside from that, it is exactly like the show we got.
We apologize, Wales.
Yeah, we're sorry.
Well, that was Saturday night in summer of 1990.
While you were watching ABC, anxiously awaiting possibly who might have killed Laura Palmer, you had Jeopardy and you had Monopoly on Saturday nights during the summer of 1990.
And you know what killed Laura Palmer?
Watching Monopoly.
I think she was the first of many victims, yes.
That's how Bob killed her. She made her watch Monopoly.
Oh God, I need some pie and coffee after that. Well,
I'm going to go play some slot machines. I hope you don't mind.
okay, well. Oh, jeez. Well, Super Jeopardy and Monopoly. One was a challenging, bust-your-brain quizzer to find the smartest person in America. The other was challenging to figure out and busted your brain as you were watching it. Together on ABC on Saturday nights. They were a thing on TV.
Yes, they were. As always, we're on social media. We're on the internet. You can find back episodes and all links to our social media accounts at www.itwasathingontv.com. And the next episode, we're not going to go too far back into the future. We're going to go back a little bit, but it's going to be another fun episode. It's going to be better than Monopoly, I guarantee that much. We could probably go through what we're going to talk about next without having to introduce complex flowcharts.
No.
Uh-oh.
And we're going to be talking about game shows again on our next episode.
Oh, yes, we will. We're not going to talk about which ones, but the episode will be up a couple days after this one, so hang tight, kids. As always, please like and subscribe, rate and review. Ladies, if you're lonely, call Big Papa Klaus over.
Not to be confused with Big Papa Pump.
Oh, God.
Big Bad Rudy Daddy. Mike.
So as I said, rate and review, like and subscribe. Yeah, like and subscribe, rate and review. And until the next episode coming up later on this week, Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Chico. I'm Mike. We'll talk to you later. Thanks for listening.
I've got the stats right here because, well, I do my homework.
He's prepared.
Yes, I am. Hey, do you know what I do? You know the other podcasts I do? It's my job to be prepared. But yeah, Frank Spangenberg over his 5 days on Jeopardy won a total of. Yeah,
He's prepared. He's
all right.
This is the close.
Are you ready?
This is the
Are you
close.
ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? 102,597.